Um, Genesis, are you? I saw you. There you are.
I'm
Are
here.
you ready for our handshake demonstration?
Sure. I am. I think so. I am struggling a little bit, and I shared this with Kevin this week. Is that I recognize that all of us are at different places in terms of implementation. Some of us have already launched. Others of us are just barely signing contracts, and so I want to meet everybody where they are, and I want to make sure that I'm I'm meeting everyone's needs and not, you know, going, um, I'm not ignoring what you all are asking for. So if throughout this presentation, I'm going to share my screen here. If there are questions, there will be ample time for questions. Please feel free to ask, and I will do my best to help. Again, I am not by any means an expert in Handshake, but I know that we did launch fairly early, and want to share with you what we learned along the process, and some tips along the way that I think might be helpful to you in not just implementation, but also as you carry on within Handshake. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we stand today in Handshake. You guys are seeing my screen, right? Yes, perfect. I'll share some implementation tips. I'm going to talk about some best practices even after launch, and then answer some questions that you have. So a little bit about how we launched and when we launched. Southwestern College implemented Handshake in 2020. We signed our contract, I believe, in early June, and then worked with our relationship manager and did a 12-week initial implementation plan. So it took us 12 weeks to launch. Employers, we launched on September 20th, and our student launch was October 1st. So that's important for you to know. You want to make sure your employers are in first, so that there are job opportunities when your students come into Handshake, so that they keep coming back. A little bit of how Handshake has helped us at Southwestern. So you should know that Southwestern is a small but mighty team. There's about 4 of us doing the work. And we were actually using an Access database. So we were manually entering job orders, and it was not fun. It was a lot of manual entry. So I want to share with you a little bit of the exponential growth that we've seen ever since Handshake came on board. So in 2019, 2020, we were still using our Access database. You can see here the change from 2019, 2020 to the next school year. The growth is really exponential, and it continues to grow. Even just the listing of jobs in itself from year over year, we can see this was really affected by the pandemic. But you can see we have some exponential growth here in how we've been able to grow and serve our students. So we've doubled the amount of students we've been able to assist from 2019 to the following school year. So some implementation tips. Really, I want to encourage you to get all of your stakeholders involved early. This includes your IT team, your programming team, your MIS team, your career center, financial aid, student employment. You want to find out who's going to be posting jobs if you have on-campus jobs, who's going to be posting those, your IT team in terms of making sure that it's available within your portal. Your career center staff knows how to utilize it. And then in terms of financial aid, are you pulling any data in regards to work study eligibility, things like that? So we got everybody involved really early. Handshake has a implementation, a help section called Handshake Academy, and they have a whole implementation module for you to go through. I went through it, and then I had all of our team members do it as well as we started to implement, so that everybody knew how to do everything. One thing that is different than maybe how other schools have did UCCN or even Jane, I think what we did differently with Handshake is we brought in all student records. We didn't just bring in the students who are directly working with us one-on-one or came to our center. We brought in all student records so that we could send job opportunities, and students, no matter if they ever came to see us, had access to the opportunities. I think it's important to know that Handshake is all about democratizing and increasing equity for students. So it shouldn't be just the students who came to see us. Our students might need a job and will never come to our Career Center office. We want them to be able to find that opportunity on their own or find those resources on their own. And so we brought in all student records.
Genesis, can I ask you a quick question on that?
Absolutely.
So when you say all records, do you have like a colleague or your student data management system?
Yes.
And that just links up with Handshake, so it was like a digital download with it?
Yeah, so there are two. So Handshake uses an Amazon S3. So what that does is you can work with your IT team to do a data upload every night or every week of the files. And so that's how most folks do it. Southwestern College still uses an FTP, so it's been a manual upload that I do every night. But it's not hard. It's an easy thing to do. So it's possible, and it's much easier to get all the information out to all the students. So, Jason, you had a question?
Yes, and actually also, I think maybe now since you're addressing this question, I wanted to ask, how do you handle alumni, and is the system helpful to them?
Yeah, and so that's something that we're addressing now. Is some of the things is, sometimes our students stop out, and we also have alumni, right? So we don't want to remove their access to Handshake just yet. So sometimes our students will come to Southwestern for a semester and then go to City and Grossmont for another semester. And so we just leave our students in for right now. Additionally, we recognize with the CTEOS, we're capturing that data 2 years out. So we've made the decision to keep alumni 2 years in. And so we'll start to filter folks out, but we haven't had to do that yet since we're still pretty new into the system. Is that helpful, Jason?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So and then we communicate and market early and often. So there are several emails that we sent out to employers to say, hey, we're migrating systems, get excited, you're going to have access to so many more resources. We did the same for students and to faculty, so they were well aware of the transition. No one was blindsided. Handshake hasn't been a hard tool to implement with employers because of the access they get to the other institutions, and so many of our employers are already using Handshake. So when we got Handshake, it was UCSD, SDSU, PLNU, USD, Cal State San Marcos, all on Handshake. And now we have all of you all also as Handshake partners. So it should be a fairly easy sell to employers to say, hey, log Handshake, connect with us, and Handshake is a network of all of the other schools that you can also connect with, and post your job opportunities with all of them as well. And then I would also just recommend preparing your training material. Victor and I created a YouTube video. We have training guides. We did presentations all over campus in every school and center. We do them every semester for FYE and all of our new students, and we have templated emails that we prepared too, so that we have these tools that we can have in our back pocket anytime an employer reaches out or a student reaches out. We also prepared Canvas announcements, and I'm happy to share that resource with you all as well, so that faculty felt, if they felt inclined, they could add it as an announcement into their class. All right, so really briefly, I'm going to do a Handshake walkthrough and do some best practices. Again, I recognize that some of this is going to be pretty familiar to you. Others, this will be brand new. So I may be bouncing around, and I'm going to do my best to be easy to follow. I've been in the system for so long that it might come naturally to me and it might not make sense. And so feel free to stop me and tell me, wait, go back. Okay, so we're going to talk about managing employers. I'm going to talk about managing students, posting and promoting events, mass emails, and student resources. Okay, so I'm going to back out and jump into Handshake. So this is my Handshake screen right when I log in, and I'll zoom in a little bit because it's a little small. First, I'm going to go into managing employers. In the Jamboard that I sent out to you all, folks wanted to know about how do you know if an employer is connected to your school. So if they are connected to your school, you can search your approved employers and they'll show up here. You can easily search here. If you're looking for a specific employer, I know Vanessa, Victor, and I have had conversations today about 211 San Diego. Okay, so if I click, I can search up here in 211 San Diego, and you can see that they are approved. And this is approved by you, by your school. So this information is here, and you can see that they are an approved employer. If they weren't, this would say this employer is not approved, and you can request approval here. Okay, this is where we're able to see who are our staff members, who are the staff members who already have Handshake accounts. Additionally, which of these staff members are our contacts here at Southwestern? Okay, and then the conversations, Vanessa, I hope you don't mind that I'm using this as an example, but this is where we've been able to communicate with our ERLs and with each other about what's going on with each employer. So for example, Vanessa just reached out to this employer. So her notes are here. So this is helpful for Vanessa, for us at Southwestern, for us to know where an employer stands and who's working with it. Because I don't want to touch an employer that Vanessa's already working on, and Vanessa wants to be respectful of relationships that we already have established here at Southwestern. So we're using this as our CRM in addition to what she's doing in HubSpot. I will say too, so that's employers, the employer side of the house. Okay, so very easily, particularly when we're thinking about, I'm going back to the employer tab, but let's say I'm looking for our accounting advisory board. I can really easily search in the location San Diego, and I can search by industry here. I can search by various industries, and I can look at in accounting, whoopsie. And all of the accounting relationships that we have approved are here. And so and then you can dive into each of those and reach out to those employers who you want to invite to your advisory boards, things like that. So that's very quickly the employer screen. If I can back up and just kind of go back to that, I'll go into that 211 example again. And I will state here, you can also see if they've posted jobs in the past, things like that. So you can see there's going to be a lot of places that you can enter notes. You can enter notes under jobs, or you can enter notes under each individual staff member. But for the sake of transparency and not having to go into every single person's record, our operating procedures here at Southwestern are to enter all your notes at the employer company level and not on the individual level. Okay. I'm going to go to manage students. So this is the student. This is where you can look at your student information. Again, I'm trusting you guys probably should not share student information, but here is our CRM. I want to point out a couple of things. You can search for your students. You can search by various major groups. You can search by any of these things. Victor and I have created a series of labels. So for example, if Victor wanted to reach out to just his students in his caseload, we have that JPCM label, and so he's able to see all of his students and reach out proactively to each of the students who are already in his caseload. Okay. And similarly, I will go to my demo student account. So here under my demo student account, I can see what appointments have taken place with this student. I can click into any of these and see the notes associated with it. I can also see what positions they applied to. I can see and that's under activity snapshot, but I'm also adding notes to each of our appointments. So if at any point in time, I, for example, went on maternity leave for a few months, Victor was able to pick up right where I left off if he wanted to. I'm going to jump into, I see your question, Svetlana. I think Victor addressed it, but I'll come back to it. Additionally, there's events. I'm going to share this with you really quickly. You can post your own events here. You can post events here. It's very easy to add a new event. What's beautiful also, and just like you would in any of in our CCNs or Janes of the world, I'm going to back up because I don't want to walk through each, but you can also duplicate those. So let's say you're doing, like Victor does, a weekly power hour job club thing. So he can duplicate that and not have to re-enter all that information. And what's beautiful is that employers can also host their own events, you can see here, and it's up to you to approve them on whether or not you want your students to see them, okay? Something I will point out here is the labeling thing comes into, is very helpful here. So for example, I can go into all of the events hosted hosted by Southwestern College. Hold on. Owner, I'm gonna go Southwestern College. And I can do all of my past events. And let's say, so I want to point something out here is we added all of our work-based learning events here, and I can also search by label. So you can see here, we've labeled WBLC3 guest speaker, WBLC1 job fair. So you can see we had 34 guest speaking events. I can go into any of those events. For example, this one with NIWIC information section and who registered, who checked in. I can download these attendees as a CSV, and it can be included in our MIS reports for SG21. So I know that that's a talking point too. That's something that I wanted to make sure that we cover. So this is how we're tracking our co-curricular, the stuff that's happening outside of the classroom that we're doing for work-based learning, okay? I also want to talk about mass emails. The email function within Handshake is beautiful. It's very easy to do, and you can see open rates and whatnot. Victor and I have sent many emails, and we've had success in getting students to register and to apply for various positions. I'll send, Victor and I will both send emails specifically just to our caseloads. Okay, and then the last thing I want to share with you, and I'll show you one. I'll open mine, just so you all see what that looks like. Okay, let me go back. Try that one again. Okay. So you can see exactly what this looks like. I send I have a little blurb, and then I share a bunch of job postings that they can specifically click and apply to. I usually send about 10. I do that every couple weeks with my students. And that's really just to remind them to keep coming back into Handshake and apply for what's there, because it's just a small sampling. And then I will share the resources. There's a section here where you can include your resource library. So for example, we have specific assessments we want our students to click into, and that all exists here in Handshake, and you can build it and make it look beautiful. I'm gonna shift back to the presentation here. And go right back into some best practices, okay? And then I'm gonna jump into the questions. because they're coming in fast. So some of the other best practice I want to share is really to work with your team to create meaningful labels. You don't want to have 5 billion labels, but you want to have labels that make sense. So anytime we have employers who are a part of our advisory boards or who are guest speakers, we add those labels. Anytime someone attends our job fair, we add those labels so that we can reach out to those students proactively or those employers proactively. And we know which of our employers are super involved, are developing strong relationships. Maybe they're posting jobs. Yes, they're a guest speaker. Yes, they're offering WBL opportunities. And so we know just how ingrained this employer is into Southwestern College. Oh, I will say this, Victor, and part of the job placement case manager role in the scope of work, we were asked to track how many times we referred students to employers and who got hired. So we have 2 hidden appointment types that students cannot select. They live on the back end, students cannot select them, but it's our way of tracking how many times we've referred a student to an employer. And our success note is how we track when a student is hired, okay? Our newsletters drive engagement, and that was really why it was important for us to bring in all students, because if we have a job opportunity for a landscape technology student, but they've never come to our career center, our student employment office, we still want them to see the opportunity, and we want them to come into Handshake and utilize it. So I know some of us are having trouble with our calendar sync, but that is important for us to making appointments. I'm gonna work with you guys offline on how to make that work. I can help you with that. And if I can't, again, your help desk or your relationship manager can really, really be helpful in that. I also want to share with you just some back-end information from Southwestern. Okay, we've been tracking our unique logins and how many students activate month to month. We see some similar ebbs and flows in terms of when people are slowing down for finals or the holidays, right? But we see when we expect high traffic. So the red line is how many students are activating for month to month, and then how many unique logins we have from month to month. On average, we have about 890 students on average monthly logging into Handshake, and about 323 average new activations every month. And then this is our student applications. You can see when we launched, we were mid-pandemic, right? So we didn't anticipate a lot of applications, but you can see our students are finding Handshake and applying. We have about 400 applications a month right now. I will back up, and I want to make the distinction here, right? Is that we have nearly 1,000 students who logged into Handshake, but only about 350 applied. So what that means to me is students are finding value in Handshake, not just for applying for jobs, but for resources, doing research, things like that, or RSVPing for events. And so I want to point out the importance of Handshake is not just in its job board functionality, but in the plethora of information that it provides for our students behind, in addition to the jobs. So lots of career exploration, Victor adds. So I'm going to stop there. I will continue to share my screen if needed in the demonstration. I want to back up and just kind of address some of these questions. Deneen, and Kevin, how much time do I have?
20 minutes.
20 more minutes? Good. I'm left lots of time.
I was going to say you have as much time as you need, but people might get mad at you if you take too much.
I hear that. Svetlana, is there a way to see each employer, what opportunities each employer is offering? Can you search by a type of opportunity? You can search by jobs and internships, and then on the back end we have labels for our employers in terms of job shadow, like if they're offering job shadows, if they're an advisory board, if they're a guest speaker, things like that. So we take care of the labeling on the back end, but viewing wise, you can see the internships and jobs that they have available. Is that helpful, Svetlana? Perfect. For student management, is there a section or option to input employment information? So under the, when an employer posts an opportunity, you can mark them as hired. And that way we are documenting success notes right now. And I'm currently working with our relationship manager to make sure that, to see if we can utilize the first destination survey that exists within Handshake to accurately capture that information more regularly. But yes, we have our success note that we keep for each student. Lynn, I think I covered that WBL opportunities one with our co-curricular labels within the events. Yes, did I get that for you, Lynn? Yeah, I see that. Okay. I think we did record this demo. Bruce, have I received complaints with students getting too many emails from Handshake's follow-up? We received complaints. Yeah, you know, Bruce, we haven't had a whole lot of that. We might get one or two of a student from our newsletter, from us communicating from Handshake saying, can you please remove it from our distribution? And we do that we have a label that said do not contact. And so we read them out of our communication. And that's because I think we are pushing out those communications, and we're not using the Handshake templated email to push out those communications. So maybe that's the difference. Okay, I see what you're saying. There's also within Handshake, I also recommend our students, and I'll share my screen because I think this part is important. I'm switching, you guys can, and I want to point this out, within Handshake, you can switch your user from being a student view to an employer view, so you can see the student experience as well. So I'm going into the student view right now. So something that you might want to do, Bruce, here is have them review their notifications. Sorry, not their notifications, their settings. Because within their settings, they can adjust their notification preferences to when they want to get emailed, when do they want to get push notification. They can turn all of these on or off. So it'll be up to them to do that. I'll stop sharing. Any other questions that I can address or answer? Again, I want to make this as a useful purpose of our time.
Could I ask a question? And I apologize, maybe you already answered this, Genesis, but I know one of the things that we've talked about and is very important to us, obviously, is tracking our demographic information that we have about our students. And so I was curious how you guys do that within Handshake.
Sure. I'm going to switch back to my career services account. Yeah, this is a question that's coming up, and it's a great one. I am doing, under the analytics tab, we can have a whole nother session on reporting within Handshake, but within Handshake, there's quite a few reports that are already built out for you. But if I click on students, and you can see here, we brought in our student demographic information from, again, our colleague system. And so you can see, you can pull in all of our student data based by ethnicity, gender, things like that. And so that exists there. I will be doing that because of our students of disproportionate need. You can see here, I built a specific report for it, for our strategic objective for our Vision for Success goals. So it all exists there. It's just a matter of pulling it and sharing it up.
And so you're adding that information when you're doing your data share or your upload of student information, correct?
Correct.
So it has to already exist in the student information system for it to be able to exist here.
There's two ways. So it does not have to exist in your student data. you'll get a more complete picture if it does exist in your student data, because every student has it. But within the student's profile, they have the option of populating that information. Why can't I see it? Let me back up. I don't think they can see it on their end. You know what? They can't see it on their end. So yes, it does actually have to come through their student data. It does have to come through their student data because it's hidden on the back end. It's not anywhere seen on their profile. So it is back end information. Kevin, are you saying reporting? Is that maybe we should if you're offering?
No. I was just going to thank you because, as you know, so many of the colleges are like in negotiations or implementation and so forth right now. And so I think, you know, this is just such a crucial part to what we're doing, especially as we're trying to increase equitable offerings for work-based learning. It's important for us to know this information. And so if we're not set up that way, it would be important for us to probably talk to Handshake to figure out what we need to do to be set up that way. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm here to be of a resource to you all. I mean, just so you all know, prior to coming to Southwestern, I worked with another institution. We changed systems twice through the time I was there. So I'm very familiar with building systems to work for a school and how we managed to make it work for us. And so I'm happy to be of much support and help. Again, your Handshake relationship manager will probably be the best resource, but sometimes you just want to talk out your scenario and what you're trying to do and see how things work. I know all of our colleges work a little bit differently, but just having someone else you can run that by is always helpful too. Yeah, it was fun working with Jason and Bruce and trying to figure out their scenarios too. So it's fun problem solving for me also.
Genesis,
so it was a pleasure.
Another question for you. Have you shared this with your senior administration?
Yes. Yeah, so every we did a huge road show we went to every school and center possible. We are on the docket in the fall to likely make a presentation, early fall, for a year in review for Handshake in our department. And so they're going to see, and we presented to ELT before our executive leadership team. So they are aware and they're very supportive. And that has been key for us, is just communicating the good news of what Handshake is and what it does for our students to really get buy-in. We are very fortunate to have folks who are so eager and willing to incorporate it as much as possible. So, but we can only do that with our senior leadership support. Victor, did I miss anything? Because you've been my partner in all of this. I want to make sure that you're in the system all the time.
You covered a lot of the biggest stuff from the JPCM perspective. Some of the biggest things that have helped me with Handshake, the tracking also, for each job that an employer posts, there's a little portion that says applicants underneath. So you can actually see if your student has applied or if they've gone to it and checked it out. This has also helped me in even connecting to students who haven't come into the office. I'll go through, you can literally in the job section, you can pull up and see how many people have applied to certain jobs. You're like, oh, our students like this. Or you can also, and many times I can also see certain students who haven't come into our office who are continually applying to jobs. And I'm like, oh, these students are applying to jobs, but they're not getting the job. Let me reach out to them. Let me try and offer assistance. And that's been awesome. The reporting is great. And then the emails, oh man, Handshake is like, it's like their email, the way that their email system is awesome. You can make it look nice. It's like Canva for emails that you can send out. So it's really awesome. And you can select by major as well, which is really awesome. Yeah. You can decide to, if you have a position in graphic design, you can select all the people in graphic design and send them. We made some template emails. Here's a job for you. Hi, I thought you liked this job, and then you can send to them. This is a way we've also been able to connect students to jobs. And even with the too many emails, we haven't really received anything from students about too many emails, at least. I think since 2020, I can count on one hand how many people have probably asked us to stop receiving emails, but it was because they graduated and they're no longer looking for work, the type thing. So it's been really helpful in actually honing in and sending positions to students that are not only looking for positions, but in their field, and then them being able to respond and connect. So it's helped outside of just class presentations, outside of connecting to people who I see or who know me, to be able to connect students to jobs and opportunities as well.
And I'll say, like, our work-based, so anytime our faculty or work-based learning coordinators are asking for particular employer contacts for a class project or a guest speaker, we often look to Handshake, look in Handshake and search by specific industries and reach out to our recruiters at the various companies and see if they can point us in the right direction. So it's a tool for our back-end research as well.
Okay, I have another question. Sorry, Genesis.
Sure.
Sorry, Victor. So one of the things that we've been having discussions about is tracking the students that actually get the job. And so how have you, do you have processes and procedures in place? I know you can probably do it within the system, but do you have an agreement with the student that they're going to tell you if they get the job?
My goodness, Janine, thank you so much for asking that question. I forgot to share one thing that I thought was really, really important. Yes, I'm going to share my screen. There are a couple things. I'm going to answer your question in a wraparound way. So for example, when a student books an appointment with us, actually, let me go back. Again, I apologize for bouncing around in so many screens, but here I am. I'm a student looking to book an appointment, and I'm clicking on an internship search appointment. Okay, so they're going to meet with me. Okay, the next availability I have is the 31st. They're going to book the 1 o'clock appointment. You can add a survey, which is essentially your intake form. I know a lot of us are using intake forms with our students. So I built my survey within Handshake and added it at the tail end of my appointment, or at the beginning of my appointment, so they can tell me as much information about their job search as possible. I'm going to back out and show you one more thing. So this is, again, a really helpful tool to make your life easier. Let me see here. I'm going to go to the appointments. So in that way, no, sorry. I'm looking for an internship appointment. So you can see this student completed the survey, and now I have all of this information about what are her long-term goals. Is she willing to do an unpaid internship? How committed is she? What are some of her barriers? Does she have access to a car? Does she have anything that might affect her job search? I walk into this appointment with all of this information ready to go so that we can just get onto the meat and potatoes of our conversation. So that's a pre-appointment survey. Victor and I also instituted a post-appointment survey, and it's not really a survey, but it is Victor, guidelines for engagement. So you can see we make our students, once the appointment is over, we hold them to specific response. We make them initial that they're going to be in communication with us, that they are going to complete tasks by scheduled due dates, that they understand that we're here to provide support. We're not getting the job for them, that they're going to conduct themselves with professionalism. They're going to honor their appointments, and they're going to let us know when they get hired. So this is an agreement form that they get after an appointment with us, so that they know of those expectations. Does every student complete that form and abide by it? We wish they would, but at least it's a starting point for us. I hope that was helpful.
No, that's great. That's amazing. I love it. It's great.
Is there a way to automate a follow-up survey to students who apply for jobs to find out outcomes? No, no, there is not, but you can put it on your calendar for a regular caseload email. Victor, oh, go ahead, Vic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
And we've also, sorry, been having some issues. We've also, that's one great thing about the emails too, because when you have people on your caseload, like since we've created some in Google Forms, we're able to send those out as well.
Mm-hmm. So Victor will email his caseload of, what is it, 165 that I pulled up earlier, 165, and he has it on his email to send out that survey to them every 2 weeks for an update. And then if they have a new job, they can enter that information into his Google form right away. So it's not in the system, but it allows him to go back to those students who completed that form to enter in a success note for them so that they get added. Or we can also look to the job postings and make sure that they get converted to hired. So those are our two metrics. So we go look at the job placement, the job postings and see who got hired, or we look at our success notes and we pair those metrics to report up. Any other questions?
I have a question, if that's okay. So having worked in career services before, like we all know, like tons of employers will sign up to participate. Not a lot of people always do, right? So I'm curious what strategies you guys have put in place to actually get employers to really engage within Handshake, not just sign up because they're checking the box to sign up with a bunch of colleges. And if it's an area we all need to work on together, then we can do that too.
Yeah, it's definitely, so Victor and I actually just had a really big conversation about this a couple of days ago, is because the email functionality within Handshake is not just great for students, it's good for employers. Victor and I were saying we need to do better about creating these quarterly employer newsletters that talk about different ways to engage, that maybe we're highlighting, oh, we're doing, at the beginning of the semester, we're saying we're doing these career panels. If you want to engage, please let us know. Oh, we're doing mock interview week this week. If you'd like to be a part of it, please let us know. So there are different ways for them to get involved. That's definitely an avenue for us to dive into more, to get them to engage in other ways, and to remind them of all the different ways that they can engage. Oftentimes we do have employers who just post a job opportunity, but don't wrap around and update us or update their posting even that it's closed. And so we have an email that we have reminders on our calendars every 2 weeks to go back to those employers and say, hey, how is it, how's your job posting doing? Have you gotten a lot of hits? What could we do to better support you in improving your recruitment efforts here at Southwestern? So that's, and here are some folks that we see that you have applied for your position that no one's reviewed. Did you know that? And sometimes they're like, no, I didn't know that. And so we have to go back and educate them. So
yeah, thank you. I think maybe that's a discussion we could have collectively here in the work group moving forward, and come up with some best practices or suggestions, share what everybody's doing locally, and see how we could come up with just like an improvement model of what we do regularly. I think one of the ideas that we've talked about with the ERLs quite a bit with employer engagement and so forth is like building those multi-tiered relationships, right? So like, we don't want someone to just post a job, or we don't want someone to just, be a guest speaker on a panel. We want like all of the above. And so, how do we engage and build those multi-tiered relationships with more than one person in the company and participating in more than one way and so forth? And so I'm sure we could come up with quite a bit with the expertise and knowledge we have in this work group. I was just curious if you guys had already started in that area.
I mean, and on the back end, we're just labeling those employers so we can see the depth of the relationship, but it's not, Handshake is not the answer for all of that engagement. It's the tool that we track it, but all of that work, like Bruce has said here in the chat is that nothing replaces the personal touch. There, and then to clarify, Svetlana, there are actually not faculty accounts. We actually granted our faculty student accounts. That was a recommendation from Handshake and from other schools across the country, that faculty don't need a special access. Admin access is too heavy. They don't need to see all of this. And the truth behind a faculty's engagement within Handshake is to encourage their students to engage in Handshake. And so we have given our faculty what we call faculty courtesy accounts that are actually just student accounts. So they see everything a student sees and can walk a student through their the process of engaging within Handshake. You had a question?
I have a question.
Sure, Jenny.
So this may be hard for you to say because I realize that there's no way for you to know for sure if someone applied for and got the job. But if you look at the number, do you have any metrics about the number of jobs that employers are putting in versus the number of jobs that gets applied for and or hired from?
I can pull that data, but I don't have that ready on hand. But it is because we have so many employers, and because this is a network of employers from 1,100 colleges and universities across the world. Students are seeing jobs from everywhere. And so what they're attracted to is what Victor and I have to drill into and see that we're getting more opportunities in the fields that they want to get into. So I don't have that information on hand, but it is definitely something that we're paying close attention to, because right now I'm looking at the jobs posted. Let me pull that up. Approved jobs posted is let me click this. 8,296. So there are 8,000 job and internship opportunities posted, and maybe a handful of them get seen. When the student signs up within Handshake, they're able to select, are they looking for a part-time job, full-time job? Are they looking locally? Or what locations do they want to look at? Are they open to remote opportunities? What industries do they want to look at? And those populate their feed. So those opportunities are what they're going to see first. And if they're going to look outside of that, they have to do a little bit more searching and tailoring of their keywords. But when they sign up and when they log into Handshake every time, it's going to populate the stuff that they actually want to see.
Okay, yeah, I know at Grossmont College where I am, they don't use Handshake, they use CCN at the moment. But I'm seeing that discrepancy there too. Like you said, there were 8,000 job postings, but only a handful. And so I'm curious, like, that's something that if we want to be effective with this tool, be it CCN or Handshake, whatever the job board is, for it to be effective, we have to have enough students to provide the jobs for the employers, or the employers are going to not see the value in posting.
100%. And then that's the struggle of the work that we do in job placement, right? I see my job placement case managers shaking their head. It's that you can't put you have to grow both at the same time, right? If you don't have these students for it, don't reach out to that employer, because then you're going to disappoint that employer. But if you reach out to the employer, you don't have the students for them, then you're going to disappoint the employer. We want to make sure that we're growing our student populations and growing our graduating students who are ready, right? Our graduating students who are ready for employment to be ready for particular employers. So we got to work together it's a constant battle. Got to work through it, but it's about being educated about who's in your caseload.
Genesis, Caitlin had a question in the chat. So faculty won't be able to track their students' activity on Handshake, so they would need to come to you?
No, so faculty, the work that we're doing faculty-wise within the curriculum is being tracked on the back end through our Cricunet and things like that, and the tools that are happening there. Things that are happening outside of the classroom are inputted within Handshake. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, Caitlin. I don't know if that's specifically what you're asking, but I was thinking more, what I was interpreting Caitlin's question is like, let's say I'm an instructor and I have all of my students are required to come and meet with you. Then like, do they follow up with you? Do they follow through? That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, if could I find out which of my students have come to you and follow through?
They couldn't do that search on their own.
They would have to come
Through
to
Handshake,
you.
they would come to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Thank you, Denise. That was kind of what I was thinking in terms of some of the faculty might want to embed specific activities on Handshake. Like I could just think of careers in psychology class where they might ask students to reach out to like 3 employers, put together a cover letter, and maybe even start applying. So it would be, I was just curious if the faculty would be able to see, you know, and give students points for completing the assignment. So I see now that they'll have to go through me to track students' progress. So thank you.
However, for example, me and Genesis do have some type of workarounds in the sense, like, let's say if an employer does want to do an event, I'm sorry for jumping in. If an employer does want to like say, okay, I want them to attend a resume workshop or event. Within events, students and those with access can see students that have signed up for events. They're like, oh, this person signed up for an event. Oh, this person. So if a faculty member did want their students to go and register at an event, they would be able to see, you know, which of their students actually registered, but they'd have to get to us to see if they like attended. So there's some things, but no, we haven't given them the complete access.
Got it. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you.
So I know we could probably talk about this all day, and so appreciative for you sharing this tool with us. And I'm sure folks will be reaching out to you individually for other questions that they may have. So thank you, Genesis. Thank you, Victor, for sharing with us today.